Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're gonna talk about Cattleya orchids. So I will cover here the 5 mistakes that people commit when growing Cattleya orchids, and also how can we tackle some of these mistakes. If you're a beginner, you most likely will experience some of these, you commit some of these mistakes. It's part of our learning, it's part of the things that we do while learning how to grow our plants. But maybe this video help you to see some of it before it actually happens. I have here a Cattleya that it's Aurantiaca, let me see, Mishima spot cross with sibling. I've committed some mistakes while growing this one. I set it back. After a while, it is finally pushing out a ton of buds inside this growth here. And I think inside this sheet here, there are some buds as well. I will open it with you. I think that will be fun. In the end of the video, I will record it. Anyway, let's dive straight into Cattleya orchids, some of the mistakes. Let me know if you have already committed some of these mistakes, how you fix it down below, and what's your journey with Cattleyas. Let's go. Mistake number 1 when growing Cattleya is overwatering. These plants, they come from dry and hot regions of the globe. Some of them will be coming from a little bit, they are more adaptable to different temperatures and they grow more towards the intermediate temperature. But generally speaking, most of the hybrids, Cattleya hybrids, they are adapted to the hot regions of our planet. If you grow in a country where you have mostly intermediate temperature all year round, that's my case, these plants don't need to be watered all the time. So you need to keep an eye on the potting mix, making sure that the roots are completely dry before offering it some water. Otherwise, if you offer too much water, you might cause these orchids to get stressed and have a massive case of root rot. Root rot will make your roots rot, and in the end, you're gonna have a dehydrated and stressed plant. Remember that Cattleyas have these pseudobulbs and they store water, so they can go for certain periods without water and they will not die. But I'm not telling you to simply leave it without water, no. Just stick your fingers inside the potting mix, or if you have a transparent potting mix, like I do here, you can check if the orchid roots, they are like grayish. So that's a good sign that you need to offer them some water. If you are potting your Cattleyas only in bark, you can soak for 15 minutes and then remove and wait for it to dry out. If you have other sorts of mix, always remember to check if your plant is drying out before watering. I had a ton of root rot in the beginning. I ended up losing a ton of Cattleyas because they were losing all of the roots, so I had to adapt my mix and also my watering routine. Okay, let's go to the mistake number 2. Mistake number 2, not enough light. So, Cattleya orchids, as I mentioned in the beginning, not only they grow in tropical areas of our planet, but for this reason, they are exposed to bright light. When we are growing our Cattleyas, some people will mistake Cattleyas for Phalaenopsis and we think that's the same conditions. So Phalaenopsis, they can be grown in bright space but without direct light, or actually in off spaces as well. With Cattleyas it's a bit different. They need brighter light than Phalaenopsis to be able to bloom and to grow healthily. That's another mistake that I also committed in the beginning, where I was just keeping some of my Cattleyas under my shelvings and they were not able not only to grow larger and larger growths, but also to bloom for me. I discovered that I need to keep my Cattleyas on the bright windows here behind me. That's where I have the southern exposure, and that offers the brightest light for my Cattleyas to be able to grow and push out flower spikes. Not only that, because I don't have space for all of my Cattleyas here, I also place some of them under growing light. So, how can you notice if your Cattleya don't have enough light to grow? Easy. Look into the roots and the growths. Check if they are becoming larger and larger. If you have a healthy plant, that should be the case. Also, look at the leaves. Cattleya leaves, usually they are, I like to say that they are dark green, but they should have a little bit of a lighter tone. It's difficult to explain, but I will show you some examples, which means that they are being exposed to bright light. When they have super dark leaves, in my opinion, we might need to change the location and might expose them to a bit more light than before. So they will be able not only to grow healthily, but also to push out flower spikes. Without bright light, these plants, they will probably not bloom for you, not even now, not even in the future, because they need this high exposure to be able to function properly. Mistake number 3, it's about airflow. So these plants, they are herbicide plants, which means that they don't grow in soil. That's very, very important. They grow attached to trees and tree trunks in their natural environment. So they need a lot of airflow or air circulation around their root system. We need to offer them an appropriate mix, but also to have some air circulating around our house. For this reason, we place them in our shelvings. When it's possible, open the windows, leave some air around, leave them in a bright space, but also in an open space where we're gonna have some air circulating around. When this happens, we not only offer some airflow around our collection of plants, we avoid fungus that can actually mold spread, that we will enjoy environments where we don't have air circulation, and also when we don't have enough airflow, we can have some water logged around the root system and can cause a different series of infections. We can have our growth that can rot and die. We can have root rot. So there are so many infections that we can avoid when we have air circulating around. So when we water our plants, very important that we look into our new growths. Don't let water trapped in there, or if you have water trapped in there, that will have enough air circulating around that will be able to dry this water. Otherwise, the growth will probably rot and die, and we will lose the new growth. The new growth would be able to push out new roots, and then we will not have a plant that will be growing healthily. Before I go to the next mistake, just to let you know, if you enjoyed this content so far, please hit the like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel. There is a super thanks here as well, that it super helps and help my channel to grow, and there are some affiliated links down below that you can click through, and you'll see some products that I use when growing my orchids. Okay, so now let's go to the mistake number 4. So mistake number 4, it's about repotting your Cattleya at the wrong time. So what this means? Cattleya orchids, there are 2 things. First of all, they are symposial orchids, which means that they will grow one growth after another. They have a rhizome that will grow horizontally, and from this rhizome, we're gonna have new growths sprouting. So these new growths will be like fully mature like that, and they will be able to store water, energy, and not only push a completely new root system. Cattleya orchids, they are not really adaptable when we're talking about repotting them. Usually when we repot our Cattleya, the roots, the old roots or the roots that were coming from old growths tend to die. So we don't have these roots to maintain our orchid completely hydrated, but not only that, completely fed with the right nutrients that it needs. So it's really, really important that you repot your Cattleya orchids when you notice that you have a new growth sprouting from the base of the rhizome. So if you do have this new growth sprouting, which means that this new growth will push out a completely new root system that will be able to keep our orchids alive. If you simply repot at any time, when let's say you just have a completely mature growth, this growth have already pushed out its roots, what will probably happen is the other roots can get stressed, you might lose it, and you might have an orchid that is very, very stressed. So if you don't have enough growths, you might even kill your Cattleya orchid. Always pay attention to see what's happening. Something else, usually our plants will be more active during spring and summer, during the warmer months where we have more light and it's a little bit warmer. So not only if you have a new growth sprouting, but you have more light available for you and for your plant, actually, you have greater chance of repotting your plant and having a healthier orchid. This orchid is a good example that I repot. I lost its roots. I had cases of rot, and on top of that, the newer growths that were pushing out leaves, they were showing signs of nutrients deficiency. When I see this black tip here on this leaf, what tells me is that it didn't have, I think it's nitrogen, it's one of the nutrients, because I didn't have enough roots. Now I do, so this should be fixed in the next growth. It's growing completely outside of the pot. It is one of these orchids that will grow horizontally, so for these reasons sometimes we need to have this space for some of our Cattleyas. But potting them when we have new growths sprouting, when the weather helps, probably will give you greater chance of success with Cattleyas. And then, finally, let's go to the last mistake. Mistake number 5, it's using the wrong potting mix. I know that when we receive our first orchids, or when we decide to buy orchids, or someone gives them to us, we think that they are houseplants, so should I pot like my other houseplants? Some people will just simply pot orchids in soil. I actually was talking to someone from Brazil that had a Cattleya, was showing me their Cattleya, and their Cattleya was potted in soil, which is a big mistake. Why? Because these plants, as I mentioned already, they are epiphytes. This is a hybrid, but the parents would grow attached to trees and tree trunks. So if you have gardens, if you live in a house, for example, in a warm country, can definitely attach them to trees. They will attach their roots to the tree, and they will probably keep growing nicely and healthily if they are hydrated, if there are no pests around. But if you want to grow them as houseplants inside our flats, like it's my case, I don't have a garden, I don't live in a tropical country, what I have to do is to pot my Cattleya up. And when I pot my Cattleya up, I cannot pot it in soil. Also, maybe cocoa husk, I don't know how it would react. I would avoid a mix that has a ton of humidity if you are a beginner. If you are a beginner, look for mix that are proper for orchids, for example, bark, that will not only offer some humidity to the roots of this orchid, but most important, you're gonna have air circulating around the root system. You have greater chance of succeeding if you do it than if you use mix that are not exactly appropriate for your orchid, like soils, for example. I do pot my Cattleyas in bark and moss, but I add much more bark than moss because I live in a country that's not exactly super hot or super warm, so I need to have a little bit of humidity in my potting mix, but mostly important, I need to offer it a lot of air, and I need to make sure that my plant is drying out between watering. For this reason, this mix work for me. If I was starting again, I would use full bark until I was pretty confident that other mix would work for me. You can soak your orchid when you are watering it, and it should do the trick. That was the last mistake that I want to cover here. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoy growing your Cattleyas. And as I mentioned before, if you did, hit the like button, leave a comment down below. Let me know if you have beautiful Cattleyas in your collection and which one is your favorite. With that, I'm going and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Watch TV now.
Pot. Gotta pot.
Finally!
De motos longuinhos.